Hello friends, greetings to, I was gonna say greetings to Wednesday. It is indeed Wednesday when I'm filming this video, but greetings to April, in fact. Why is this so bright? So as you can see, the workroom, we are settling in very nicely here, but it is not quite put together yet. We are still in a state of an empty room. I am still waiting for the legs, the drawers that go under the cutting table, which is there. This I took from New York with me because it's flat and it wasn't too bulky, but I couldn't take the actual legs, the drawers. If you hear some crinkling, it's because I'm sitting on a box. We are here, we are settling in wonderfully. This place is still an absolute wondrous dream and I love it so much. I'm just waiting for the day when I can actually properly settle in and get to work, because the cutting table is kind of the central part of my physical sewing work, not to mention the thing that holds all of the sewing supplies. So we've got a bit of a situation over here with fabric and patterns and boxes and stuff just sort of hanging out on the floor. I was experimenting with this teleprompter that I was trying to set up this morning. I've just finished writing the script for a new video, which I was hoping to shoot today, except it is a scripted video, so I do want to teleprompt it, and in order to use this new teleprompter, I realized I will need a monitor for the camera because it's quite big. It's a lot bigger than the little... I can show you. By the way, the rest of the trimmings and sewing supplies are hanging out on the kitchen counter. They are organized by piles, I promise. It just looks like a disaster right now. But this is the little teleprompter friend that I was using once upon a time. It's just a little iPhone sized. The camera sits in the back here because I was using little point and shoot cameras. This comes off and there's a little slanty bit of glass there so you can read the glass reflection without not looking like you're looking at the camera. It's quite cool. I upgraded to a new actual proper fancy one that is a bit bigger. It takes an iPad on the bottom instead of a phone, so the text is bigger, which means I can see it properly, and that also means that I have more text to read on screen, so it's not scrolling so quickly and I can sound more natural when I read it. But anyway, in order to use that, I realized that I need a monitor to sit on top of the camera to actually show me what I'm looking at and when the camera stops recording or is running out of battery, so I'm not just presenting the whole thing whilst the thing is not recording. But then I also decided, you know what, if I'm doing all these tech upgrades that have been on my list for ages, I might as well do the big camera upgrade that has been on my list for ages. Slightly, maybe perhaps not the best idea, because I was in the mindset impression that I was going to hold off on all future expenses, at least for the next couple of months whilst I recover from the moving expenses. So this is probably not the wisest decision, but I do feel like my video work needs some more attention right now because I am obviously not able to produce much sewing content. I am sewing right now. The sewing obviously takes many, many hours, and because I hadn't been sewing all of pretty much the months of January and February, I don't have sewing content to put out whilst I sew new stuff. So I do feel like the content that I do put out now kind of has to be like really good. I don't want to be putting out content that feels like filler content, but I wanted to actually feel artistic and thought out and well researched and well produced, if that makes sense. Because I mean, all of that still takes an enormous amount of time. Like, I'm not making my job easier by putting out nice content that's easy to produce, but I kind of don't want to do that for the sake of doing that. I would rather put out videos that are good, even if they're not sewing videos, if that makes sense. I hope the general audience are in agreement with me on that, but you know what? I also that also doesn't really matter, because I would rather put out less frequent content that I am more proud of than not. Anyway, so that is kind of what I'm up to nowadays, in a little bit of a mental dilemma of what I'm going to do to proceed with the shooting of this video. I actually don't have to, because it is a scripted and face-to-camera video, I usually send those off to be edited by an editor. Just because they don't require the level of aesthetic and storytelling that I like to put into the more aesthetic videos. It's just more straight face to camera, pretty straightforward, that someone else can do, and then I can take that time, those 2 to 3 days that I would spend editing that, and actually do other work. So that tends to work out pretty well. But this video is not scheduled to go up until next Saturday, so I don't have to get it in until Monday, and it is Wednesday when I'm shooting this video. So I do have a couple of days for potential new equipment to arrive. We'll see. This video, by the way, shall I resume my... Wait, I have a chair. Hold on. Look. Look, it's so cute. It's an old pub stool. but I thought it was perfect cutting table height. I, in my last sewing room, had a bit of difficulty finding a nice aesthetic chair that was the proper height for a cutting table that wasn't like blatantly modern, so this actually works out quite well. Hello. Oh, and look at this lamp. It's so stupid, but I love it. It is a lamp. It has light bulbs, but it looks like one of those Phantom of the Opera, like candelabra ridiculousness, and I love it so much. It's new, it's not antique. I'm trying to furnish this workroom as much as physically possible with secondhand or antique eBay, Facebook Marketplace finds, just because I don't want to buy a bunch of new stuff. I would rather just be a caretaker for some more old stuff whilst it is in my presence. So this video that I'm currently working on, this is going to be the video on pockets that I feel like I've been talking about for literal months. I have been working on it for literal months. So I had it kind of in my back pocket to do a sort of like overview of the history of pockets. Women's pockets weren't always a complete disgrace, because I keep seeing that poem floating around that's like, women's pockets were made illegal because then we could spread pamphlets for sedition or something. And I was like, this is false, but okay. I had been vaguely planning a video around pockets, and then Yale University Press, who published Barbara Berman's book on the history of pockets, got in touch with my agency and they said, hey, we want to offer a giveaway for some books in one of your new videos. And I said, perfect. I'm literally like, this video is on my to-do list and I'm heavily referencing that book. So that got pushed up to the forefront of my to-do list. And then I made the absolute dumb mistake of putting that book in my moving boxes with the rest of my books and sending it across the ocean. So I didn't have the book to reference to finish the script that I had started. So I have now officially got all my things back from New York, by the way, because I realized that had not happened. I remember shooting last month's update video saying, I don't know when my things are going to arrive, and literally the next day they got in touch and said, so we're gonna deliver in 2 days from now, is that okay? And I was like, fabulous, great. So all of my things did arrive. I have all of my fabric and all of my sewing tools and all as well. And most importantly, all of my books. So I actually was able then to sit down and finish writing this script. That I will now hopefully be shooting at some point in the near future. It has been sort of my goal the last couple of months to at least get out 2 videos per month, which is not a lot. I previously was able to do 3 or 4 a month. With all of the move stuff going on top of the book stuff, have been finding it difficult even to barely just manage those 2 videos. I did not succeed for February. I did succeed for March, and I have this one video ready to go for April, but I will need another video to go up in April. It was going to be the Mary Poppins video, because I did tell the internet I was getting that out for April, but we shall see. That dress is taking so long because I am not able to work on the sewing full-time as I previously was able to work on sewing projects full-time, just because I'm still dealing with moving stuff, I'm still dealing with settling in, but I'm also working on other projects simultaneously. So I've blocked out my days according to what project I'm working on. So whether I am focusing on a script for a video, editing for a video, I have days that are just devoted to sewing, and then I have days that are just devoted to other work, days that are devoted to writing the book that I'm supposed to be writing. So my weeks are a bit more split up than they usually are, at least for the next couple of months. I'm hoping things, by the time that this manuscript is finished and is submitted in June, this place will be all set up and I will just be able to get back to my actual reconstruction work, which I am super looking forward to because I miss sewing so much. I did a little post on the Instagram, so if you follow the Instagram, you probably have already heard this, but the days that I get to just sit down and sew all day are like the best days, and I look forward to those days. I've been relegating those to the weekend days, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because firstly, because it just feels more like relaxing and more like a day off in this period when I cannot afford to take days off right now. But it also, when I sew, I don't like to be on the computer. I don't like to have notifications. I don't like to feel obligated to respond to emails because I like to be in the physical world doing stuff with my hands and not distracted by the digital stuff. So I like to do that on weekends because there's no pressure to respond to this email right now because this is an emergency. I can show you where I am with the project. Hold on. This project is a bit weird because it's not like straightforward. Like I have a dress pattern, I'm going to make a dress, but I am piecing together bits of lace in order to make the shapes that will form the different components of a dress that will then all go together to make a dress. So I have 2 sleeves, as you can see. Did I show you the lace bits last month? I may have done. So I started just by seaming together all these little bits of insertion lace that formed a wide strip that I could then form into a cuff, added a little ruffle here, added the sleeve shape, which had this insertion bit going on in here, and then eventually ended up with an entire sleeve. So the dress is kind of being built up component by component, which is not the way that I normally work, but it is proving a very interesting way to work, and I'm actually quite enjoying it because it's remaining small enough in small enough pieces that I can sort of pick it up and hold it in my hands, and it's not huge and cumbersome like some hand sewing projects are, and it's just more relaxing this way. But I also have all of the insertion lace put into the skirt bit. It's enormous because it hasn't been gathered up at the back, but I've got the gathering threads in there. This is going to get lower ruffles and pin tucks and insertion lace. And then I also have the collar bit, which is put together up there. So all I really have to do left with this gown is get the skirt stuff put together, do the entire bodice, which is going to be slightly difficult given that I don't currently have a dress form. I'm procrastinating that. We're not going to talk about that right now. And then of course to attach all of the items. I also have to make a sash, but that should be quite simple. I've got some nice little silk moire for that, so that should be quite nice. Abby has sent me a picture of a sash that she has in her collection that is perfect, and it's very simply constructed. It's kind of just like one gathered up strip, I guess, with some stays, some vertical boning, just to keep it vertical. And I was going to just have the, pardon the iron thing, I'm going to nail this to the wall up there so that I could hang the iron reservoir from it. I love this so much. It looks so like antique and old. I was just going to have the sash just be a strip of silk satin ribbon, but then Abby showed me that sash and it looked so simple, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna make a proper sash because it will look nicer. So there's a little bit of work still to be done on the dress. I could probably get it done in the month of April if I devote more sewing days to this project. So we shall see. I'm going to wait until we get a little bit further into April until I actually make that call. It depends on how stressed I get with this book. I was extremely stressed about it over all of March because I just have no concept of how much work is involved in this, and I have been sort of plodding through it bit by bit, but there's no sort of linear path that I can measure my progress, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of like writing stuff down, and I have a table of contents, so I have an outline. I have the biggest chapter kind of roughly written. Wow. So having assessed the situation, I am a bit farther along with it than I thought I was, and I don't think it's going to take as long as I thought it was going to, just because I was sort of measuring this off of Abby and Lauren's experience for the American Duchess books, and it was 2 of them working like full out all hours of the day for 4 months to get their book done. And I thought, oh my god, I'm one person and I have 3 months to do this. But I am not doing full hand-sewn projects. I'm just doing samples and stitching samples and a lot of text. So it's a lot less labor intensive. The big thing currently is that for the more step-by-step instructional parts of the book, I'm doing the photography myself, and that means I have to be able to take pictures myself, which means I kind of need a space in which to do that. I cannot do the photography until I get the workroom properly set up, which means I kind of physically cannot work on that part of the book until that happens. So I'm thinking it may just be more worth my time to spend more of my effort on the dress and then just hardcore focus on the book throughout May and June. So we shall see. I have commissioned a hat to be made for the project, which that may actually end up being the deciding factor, because I don't have the time to make a hat myself for this project in any sort of reasonable fashion that will get the video out before July. However, I don't believe that that will be ready until May. So either I allow the dress project to carry on until May and just get that video out for May and do something else for April and have the entire outfit put together and, you know, Mary Poppins-esque for the final reveal of the video, which kind of a bit makes sense to do. Or I just release the video when the dress is done, which will potentially be end of April, and do like a separate little short film reveal of the actual full outfit when I have all of the components together. So we'll see. In which case, like, if I'm going to do that, I might as well have just made the hat myself. So I don't know, we'll see. Again, I'm going to let time pass and keep on existing until we know more. I think that is the best that we can do in this situation. So the other thing that is potentially a little bit on my forefront of video plans, a couple of things. I've got 2 more of those documentary videos planned, arranged, people committed, willing to do it, and I am so excited. Those videos are kind of like the most fulfilling for me to produce on this channel. I'm just waiting for us to get out of lockdown, which sounds like at least is going to start to happen in the middle of April, if not definitely more so by May, so we may be able to start traveling places. I have a watchmaker who's going to teach us about, so there's a development in the mechanics of watches, so it's pre-batteries, pre-quartz, but to actual Victorian clockwork. He's one of the few people left, I guess, who actually work with clockwork, like antique watches and clocks, obviously. So I'm gonna do a feature on what he does because I think it's super fascinating. And I have a kilt maker lined up. Kilt maker is here on Patreon, actually, so we've been in touch and chatting about all sorts of kilt things, which is going to be exciting. So those are 2 of those documentary craft series, traditional craft series feature videos that are definitely in the pipeline, are definitely good to go as soon as lockdown lifts. And then I've got a couple of more ideas that I haven't asked the participants yet, but I have people in mind who I would like to ask. There is a great traditional milliner here in London who I would love to do a feature on millinery, traditional millinery. They do primarily men's hats, so I'm thinking it will be more like silk Victorian top hat, the making of, because obviously millinery is a massive field that covers a range of different styles of hats. So we will be specifically, I'm hoping, focusing on like the top hat, like Victorian style. I also know of a very unique tailor here in London on Savile Row, so I would love to do a series on Savile Row tailoring. I haven't asked these people yet, so I don't know whether or not they'll say yes or no, but the point being, I would love to also do a video on Savile Row tailoring, highlighting, I'll probably speak to several different tailors, but it kind of helps, I feel like, with this story for viewers to be able to sort of have a character that they get to know and sort of like and root for within the story of the traditional craft. Familiar face that we can keep coming back to, who they can trust and bond with, I guess, over the course of the video. That sounds weird, but this is actually the idea that started the entire series that I was actually planning to shoot last year before lockdown got chaotic. But again, I have not got in touch with the Harris Tweed Authority, but I want to do a whole video on the making of Harris Tweed, because a lot of the, I should probably not backlight this, a lot of the weavers and sheep farmers and dyers and people involved within the whole sequential process of creating Harris Tweed is still adhere to traditional crafts. So that is also something I would really love to do a video on. Lots of little documentary feature videos that I'm just so hype about, but we are just waiting until lockdown is no longer a thing. I've also been contacted by HBO who want to sponsor a costume review. That was kind of amazing to me, that like had never occurred to me that that was a thing that would potentially happen, but I'm kind of really excited. It's for a new series of theirs. I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it because I've just signed an NDA for it, but it's for one of their new series that are coming out that is historically set. It's a little bit fantasy though, so it's going to be an interesting thing to talk about. I've had a look at the trailer and the clothes look really, really good, but I did get back to them and I was like, so the series itself looks interesting, like it's genuinely something that I would watch, which is why I said yes. But I did go back and I said to them, like, you know, I'm not going to give you a review that is everything is historically accurate and it's wonderful and it's great and you should watch this. Like, that's not what I do. But my point with doing any costume review that I've done on my channel is to use the costumes not as a value judgment, so it's not going to be degrading the show, but as a sort of jumping off point to learn about actual silhouettes and features of dress throughout history. And they said, yes, that's exactly why we asked you. Like, that's why we want you to do this. So I'm super excited about this. It sounds like it's going to be a fabulous opportunity. It kind of goes against what I was not wanting to do in individual costume reviews, but I'm going to sort of take it in the way that I did with the Hamilton video, because I don't think it's valuable for anyone for me to just get on camera and say, this costume is historically accurate, this costume is not historically accurate. Like, that doesn't actually offer educational value to the internet, and it's also like, it's not fulfilling for me to produce. I'm going to need to find like a bigger thesis in this. So I'm thinking, and I have had this idea in the back of my head for a while, I was going to do it with Game of Thrones, but this one actually might qualify just as well. But I have a theory that fantasy costuming can be historically accurate, because the parameters that define historical accuracy, like, we don't look at period films and say, this costume is good, this costume is bad. We are making those judgments based on a set of pre-existing parameters. Is this evidence that we see in history, or is this not? If a fantasy film creates very believable and practical and realistic sets of its own parameters and its own rules and its own practicalities within their world of dress, it becomes believable. And Game of Thrones is a fantasy series that does historical accuracy really well, I think, because they have all these different geographical regions and different classes of people, and people who wear clothes in certain styles, and then people who are influenced by those clothes that are worn in certain styles, and you can very clearly see who is from what region and what class they are based on what they're wearing, and it's very consistent. So even though Game of Thrones does not take place on our physical timeline of historical reality, it is, in theory, historically accurate because they follow a very strict set of practical rules of dress. So that is a theory that I have that I would like to explore at some point. Game of Thrones is obviously massive, so I have not got around to actually doing that video because it's going to take so long to do all of the research on that, and to get actual specific examples from this series, because there's so much. So that's something I'm super excited to explore a bit about. I'm quite thrilled. I know I'm biased, but I'm quite thrilled about the prospect that like big network series providers are interested in working with costumers and people who talk about and educate about historical dress. That kind of like makes me really excited in prospect.
Meanwhile, his lordship is doing quite well in his quarantine situation. His home is just sitting right there, still broken down. I have not set it up yet. I miss him so much. I can't wait for him to come and exist in this space with me. He's going to love running around on the floor here. This place is so like perfectly pig-proofed, which was kind of accidentally a good thing, just because it's very like there's no rooms really. It's just kind of like one giant rectangle with not very many like nooks and crannies, and it's got this little like crevice between the floor and the wall where the actual outlets are. So it's actually perfect for pigs, because that way I can plug in all the stuff there and sort of bury it in that trench. And Cesario doesn't have to get in there and eat my wires, which is something he enjoys doing.
So I think his lordship is going to be quite happy here. We are now 2 months into the quarantine, so we are halfway through, but he's doing well in his quarantine facility. They all love him. They text me pictures and videos all the time and updates. So hopefully when things start to open up in the middle of April, I will be able to go and visit him. The rules are very vague about what we will and will not still be able to do. Non-essential shops are going to be open, which sounds promising. There is no criteria for when we will be able to get on trains and go to visit our quarantined pets, though. Like, that is not a criteria that has been outlined on the reopening plan, so we shall see. I think the facility get to make the call when they are permitting visitors again, which I hope is soon because I miss him so much. But he seems to be enjoying his time there. He seems to be loving his caretakers there, and they certainly seem to be loving him, so it's good. At least he's happy. I would just rather him be happy here instead of not here. But anyway, I think that is all of the updates and excitement going on from last month and from this month. Things are very busy. I feel like I'm in a bit of a strange position right now where it feels like I'm so busy and I have no time for anything and everything's on deadline and everything's a disaster and everything's on fire. And yet I don't feel like I'm producing anything to show for it. It's one of those situations where the projects are big enough that you have to take out a significant amount of time to accomplish them, but in an eventual amount of time you will have a lot of good work to share, but just it takes a long time to get there. I'm accustomed to working on a YouTube scale where I put in this much effort and I get a video 2 weeks later, but that's not how larger scale projects work, and it's frustrating. But I have to keep reminding myself that 3 months, 4 months is, in the general grand scheme of human history, not a large quantity of time. I am grateful for you sticking around here and allowing me to continue working on the projects even when the YouTube videos aren't so regular, but hopefully we will get through the move, we will get through the workroom setup, we will get through the book, the world will reopen, and we shall once again have lots and lots of sewing projects. But yeah, so again, thank you for sticking around. I know according to internet timing, 3 to 4 months is a long time to not be producing regular content, but we shall be back on track hopefully soon. And on the bright side, we will have some nice, big, satisfying projects, I think, to release in the future. / I think a year from now. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month and you get to have some fun with your own exciting projects, or that you just give yourself some time off. Some, I'm sure, very well needed time off, because, I mean, again, the whole be productive during a pandemic thing is difficult, especially now that we are over a year now into this pandemic. Some of us are still working from home. If we're not working from home, then we are out in the world trying to navigate the world whilst working, which is arguably more difficult. So we are all just doing our best, and pat on the back for you because you deserve it. So I shall talk to you next month in this capacity, but meanwhile I shall see you on the YouTubes doing some stuff and talking about some historical dress stuff. So huzzah!